point is, the end result is the same.
Duty calls.
I have searched the world over for you.
That is so cool.
You guys all just have this really tight bond.
Just call me the computer whisperer. He seemed so nice and normal.
You don't want to come back to my place?
The bleach smell makes me nauseous.
I thought it was going to be a slow night.
It's fucking fantastic.
I love that sound.
Can we go now?
Sorry, I went ahead and started the recording.
That's all right. No, you've got to take care of business. I'm just talking. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. I didn't want to lose that wonderful story.
Well, he was exactly like Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, show us the box again. Nice. Why? Because I like you.
Why? Because I like you. Exactly. That's right.
I love it.
My motto.
I love it.
He's a great guy. Yeah, I want to grow up to be Fred Rogers.
That's a good aspiration. That's a good aspiration.
Give it another 40 or 50 years.
Yeah, I've got time.
What do you want to be when you grow up? Oh yeah, I was going to say, do you have a tasty beverage to enjoy during the interview, during the video? At the beginning of at the beginning of every episode, we always pop open. It used to be real beer, but we've since gone dry, so we just do ginger beer now. But we still like
go dry. Does somebody have a problem?
No, nobody had a problem. It was fine. W? We just found it was easier to get through the episode not drunk.
In the beginning, we drank because I was very nervous doing the recording, but we've been doing this for a good number of years now, and we've gotten used to that. And then a little while ago, we had to start recording in a location in a school. So then we had to make the choice of, well, we can't have beer there, so we went non-alcoholic.
Yeah, so I don't.
But we kept
lose
to the
my
name,
job.
so we kept to the name because we drink ginger beer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. It's beer with Buffy.
Beer with Buffy.
Yep.
When you went dry, or as it were, became teetotalers for the time of the show, did you notice any change in the show or in your behavior on the show?
I noticed it's a lot easier to edit. And I think it's easier to be funny, hepped up on caffeine than it is while drunk. Like maybe things are funnier to you while you're drunk, but it doesn't necessarily make it funnier to listen to.
And drunks think they're the funniest people in the world. And I was a drunk myself for about 2 decades. But they're really the stupidest people around. So it was a wise decision.
Thank you. Glad you approve.
Is this for me? I must be ready. I need my strength. Give me more! Nights I shall walk in the earth. Hold on. You've got something in your eye.
Did you listen to any of our episodes to know what you were getting yourself into?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I decided to just plunge.
That's okay. That's exactly what Harry Groner did.
Yeah, we might have scared you off. That's all right. Okay, this is going to be fun. Hello, welcome to Beer with Buffy, everybody. I'm Josh.
I'm Rex.
I'm Mark.
Today we have an extra special guest for you. You probably recognize him from movies like Animal House, TV shows like Seinfeld, but we are all here because we all know him best from our favorite TV show ever, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as everyone's favorite ancient one, the Master, Mark Metcalf.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today.
I hear the applause ringing in my ears.
Yeah, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's just get this started. I got a handful of a list of questions. I know Rex has a few questions for you.
Yes.
We mainly really just want to hear about the all the fun times you had on sets, and some anything else you can think of.
We'll be done quickly.
Okay. or the not fun times. Those drama is good too.
There was a lot of it that was arduous because of 5 hours of getting makeup on.
Right.
That was actually going to be one of my first questions is the makeup process.
Yeah. It took, at the beginning of the season, it took 5 hours because primarily they had already taken a death mask or a life mask, I think, they call it, and had created the foam that covered my face, my neck, my ears, and the skull. And they applied that beginning of the season. They applied it. They didn't know quite what they wanted, what colors they wanted it to be, and how. So they put it on and then paint it, and that took a long time. But it was great for me because it was very collaborative. They would ask my opinion, and I'd say a little here. And I'm colorblind, but they listened to me, and they were really. It was a wonderfully collaborative process. But you can notice as the season goes on, what she refers to as my punch bowl mouth. In I think the last episode or second to last episode, somewhere in there.
Prophecy Girl. I just looked that up. It's where she says you've got fruit punch mouth. That's specifically something I wanted to ask about. As long as we're there, was that an inside joke on set throughout the season, or how did that come about? That line.
I think it wasn't throughout the season because, as I was saying, they sort of painted it. If you watch the season from one, just binge watch it straight through, you can kind of see that mouth evolve where it was like I'd been sucking on a neck, a bloody neck for for 800 years. So it wasn't a joke that went on all season. I think that was probably the first time I heard it. They may have been whispering behind my back. I don't know. I didn't pay any attention to those people. But and I don't know if she brought it up or Josh probably noticed it happening, and it was a discussion because he was part of the collaborative process of what it would look like what they wanted it to look like as they painted it. By the end of the season, it was only taking them 3.5 hours to apply the makeup, because they were able to paint it beforehand and then apply it and then finish touching it up. But it was fun to wear. I mean, it was arduous, but it was also fun. It was hot, Southern California, Santa Monica.
Oh yeah,
and I sweat a lot, and the only way to get the sweat out, it would pool right at the end of my nose.
Oh Lord!
They would have to take a pin and prick the end of the nose, and then milk my nose.
Oh, gross.
And then patch up the hole. It was
no way.
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, I'm glad they found a more efficient use of your time, though, at least by painting it beforehand. Like I had to do a little bit of special makeup work just once. All they were doing was taking a mold of my face so they could make a fake severed head for a play that I was in, because my character gets beheaded. And just having to be under that mold for, I think it was half an hour or something. I was just gripping the chair the whole time, like, let this be over. But they also had to like cover my eyes and my nose, and they were supposed to have put straws up my nose before they put the goop on my face, but they didn't. And then so they just had to like scoop out my nostrils real quick before I suffocated. Real professional. It was great.
And inevitably, some of that goop went further in rather than out, and is up there in your brain to this day.
Oh,
very probably. It's why I'm the colorful man I am today.
I think you've got a lawsuit. Yeah.
I seriously doubt that. Anyway,
did you find that the makeup helped at all with the role?
Oh yeah, it was the role. Often the makeup and the costume is the character for me. But no, it helped a lot. The process of putting it on helped a lot too, because you can't do anything. I thought when I first realized it would take a long time to put this makeup on, I thought I'd learn Italian. I'd just put headsets on. But you can't put headsets on. You can't move your mouth except to talk when they ask you a question or when you have some comment that you want to make. So it had to become a real meditation.
Yeah.
And it forced me to sort of go inside myself and meditate and use some of the research that I'd done. I had them play these old, not Gregorian chants, but even older than Gregorian chants that sounded like they were recorded in a cave deep underground. They played that instead of playing Mozart, which would have been too fun. To sort of just to sort of bring that world of the vampire, and again, the world of the vampire. What do we know of it except what we imagine it to be?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Josh said early on, the great thing about writing about vampires is that there are no rules. You can make up the rules.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things like out after you have to be back in your coffin during the day, but we didn't do that. I mean, but anyway.
A lot of people get stuck in the lore of other vampire shows as well. I've noticed with like What We Do in the Shadows. Are you familiar with that show?
No, I don't watch too much TV.
That's okay. It's a newer show about vampires, and a lot of times I find myself watching and being like, "Well, they can't do that. That's not how vampires work." I'm like, "Well, they can work exactly however they want them to work.
However they want them to work. They can look like Abercrombie and Fitch models with all glitter all over them, like they do in that Twilight thing.
Twilight,
When I first was cast, they showed me the sketches for what the Master should look like. And he had kind of long, black, stringy hair, a little bit like Keith Richards, maybe, when he was young and still alive. And I suggested that Nosferatu had been a favorite film of mine, even before I got this part. But I went back and watched it again, the Murnau version of it, and then also the I can't remember who directed, but Willem Dafoe played Schenk, and what's his name?
Oh, I love that movie.
It's a really wonderful film. Dafoe's great, and I'm blanking on Malkovich plays Murnau, and the relationship and the fact that Schenk went kind of in that movie anyway, went kind of crazy and began to think he was the vampire. But I'd seen that, so I said, why don't we bring along, even though we don't have to obey any of the vampire rules, really, we still want to exist. We want the audience who has seen this vampire world before to trust us. So why don't we hearken back to and bring forward some of the history of vampires? And the Nosferatu character, I think, is the first time a vampire ever appeared on screen.
So, then you're right on that.
The makeup looks like a little bit is reminiscent of Schenk and Nosferatu. Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about the character design of the Master is it invokes that kind of old school legend and the old school design, and the Nosferatu is the classic idea of a vampire, I think. And even when Oldman does it in the Coppola Dracula movie, he refers to it a little bit. You really kind of have to, if you want to be honest. And once you've done it, once you've set it up as a visual in the audience's mind, then they bring all that, everything they've known about vampires forward, as opposed to exactly what you were saying about What We Do in the Shadows. It's okay to ignore all those rules, but you can't really ignore them because the audience will not trust you anymore.
Right.
Because if they've seen the other stuff.
Or at the very least, they need to be consistent among the rules that you've set for yourselves anyway. And that's like just one of the rules of, fiction in general. And it's still, there's still rules. They're not normal rules, but if you step outside of that, then you start to just, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Once
you've
there's a drug trip
the
film
geography of your universe, you have to live with it.
Exactly.
And obey it.
Yeah.
Continuity. You need interior continuity.
There it is. One word. Good job. Thanks, Rex. Were there any other techniques that you used to get into the character? It couldn't have just all been, maybe it could have, I don't know. But to get into character, did you study any of those classical forms of acting back in the day?
Yeah, overacting comes natural to me. And to a certain extent, I think that's inherent in what Josh was writing and what he intended. And there's once or twice at least that I'm sort of summoning up what's her name, Sylvia Sidney from Sunset Boulevard, the whole thing with the hand and calling her forth with my hand.
Yeah.
He does stuff like that, and there's a kind of a wonderful grandiosity in that. And there's something in silent movies, in the gestural language of silent movies, that I think that I worked on instilling, not precisely, but it's such a wonderful world to be in, this vampire world, and then wearing a mask gives you a kind of a liberty that you don't have. And we studied mask in acting school and all that stuff, and it's true that it does give you a liberty. It frees you up somehow when you're behind a mask, when it isn't just your face that the camera's seeing. The mask allows you to more easily become someone else. So I tried to bring, and also this living in a cave, in a church, buried under the ground. It's just such a grand notion of how to of an environment that it made me think of silent movies and some of the gestural things in silent movies. And Josh, I think, intended that to a certain degree. And then also there's a collaboration once an actor is cast and the writer hasn't written everything or does rewrites constantly. The collaboration, even if it isn't a sitting in their office talking about it, there's a collaboration between, if I write it this way, it'll work better for Metcalf than it would have for Chris Guest or somebody like that. Whoever, I don't know who Chris Guest, can you imagine Chris Guest as the master?
No. I can't even imagine Chris Guest.
He has trouble imagining you too, from what
I bet he does. Chris who? I got nothing. Total blank.
Well, but, I imagine with that kind of form of TV, like your performance in one episode would inform how the next episode's written, and you know, then how you do that. It's you know, that's the collaborative nature of the TV show. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that can really set apart a serial TV show from, you know, a movie, or even the way they do shows nowadays for like Netflix, where they basically they film them as if they're just a very long movie.
Right.
Whereas
it's eight episodes, and it's an 8-hour movie, which is great for, I think, actors and directors, because you have a much longer time to develop a depth of character, and writers work with you to do that. But in the old days, before they did that in serial TV, the people you wanted to take out for drinks and make your friends were the writers, because you could then get them to take your character, or at least enrich it, rather than have it always be the same one note all the way through, from beginning of the season to the end.
Mm-hmm.
An actor wants the character to grow, because that way he can grow too. Wants there to be some
financially. Financially, as well as emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah, I guess I never wanted to be in a series. I was in the first three out of the first 5 episodes of Hill Street Blues, which was a wonderful series early on. You guys are probably too young to have ever seen it, but it's Stephen Bochco, David Milch.
I know of it. I haven't seen it, but I know it.
It's worth seeing. I mean, a lot of what you see on TV now, they broke ground in Hill Street Blues. But they asked me at the beginning, when they cast me in this character, if I wanted to sign a contract and you do 5 years, sign a 5-year contract. And I said no, because I didn't want to do that, because I wanted to do different things. I wanted to change as much as I could. So they wrote me into 3 of the first 5 episodes. And then when they were about to shoot the 3rd episode, I came to them and said, you know, this is a lot of fun, and you guys are doing some very interesting stuff, and I'd like to work this some more. So if you want to the character to stick around through this season or through a couple seasons, I'd be fine with it now. I've changed my mind. And they said, sorry, it's too late. The network thinks your character is too much of a monster, is a misogynist and a racist. Just a horrible, bad person. And they need us to kill you off. So we're going to have you get your throat slit by a hooker who you're trying to get a freebie from. At the end.
Thought you were going to say, no, you didn't sign the contract. Sorry, too late. Get out of here.
the best story about that relates to that, and I did a soap opera called One Life to Live back in the olden days in New York. I just did whenever they'd call me, and if they wanted to put my character Stick into it, if I was available, I'd say yes. If I wasn't, I'd say no. And they told me a story once. There was a guy who was in a contract dispute. He was trying to negotiate a contract, more money, talking about financially, for the next season, and he wouldn't come to terms with the network, with the producers. So they sent him down to the basement to wax his skis in the story, and he never came back. He went to the basement to wax his skis, and he never came up. And sometime later in the season, somebody else who looked different than him came up and said, "Hi, honey, how are you?"
Oh man, doesn't even get like an off-screen death or anything. Just
no, nothing like that. He just went down to wax his skis. It became a metaphor.
Huh.
I use it on my son often when he doesn't listen to me. I say, "You're going to have to go down the basement and wax your skis."
So that actually makes me think of another question. Because I was looking over your filmography and your roles on TV and everything, and
right.
You don't have very many like long-standing roles in TV.
I deliberately didn't want to do that. My first, I think 5 years in New York, I said I didn't even audition for any television or movies. I didn't want to do any screen. I just wanted to do theater. And eventually, somebody asked me, Paul Gurian asked me to do a movie that Jack Shoulder directed, that Be Straight was in, and Jessica Harper, a short film from a Catherine Mansfield short story. And I thought there was a literary value in a Catherine Mansfield short story called The Garden Party. And they were going to shoot in Vermont, and it was Jessica Harper and Be Straight. It was a good cast. And I said yes to that. And that kind of broke my hymen, as it were, on film. And then I sort of started. But I've tried to be really selective in the beginning. I got seriously less selective. I mean, if you looked at the filmography, I did an episode of Renegade, and I did an episode of Silk Stockings, and I did a lot of crap. So, but it took a while.
A lot of things.
I had integrity for a while.
Did you ever feel like you were in any way being typecast? Did you ever struggle with that?
Yeah, I mean, I was being typecast because they have a very limited imagination as far as casting goes out there. But I let myself do it too. I did.
I see.
In the 80s, I did the Twisted Sister video. What do you want to do with your life? And we're not going to take it. I did those, which really reiterated the Neidermeyer character.
Yeah.
So I let it happen. I did a really nice film called Mr. North that Danny Houston, John Huston's son, directed. Angelica Houston was in it. A lot of really great, Bob Mitchum, Harry Dean Stanton, Betty McCall. A lot of really good people in it. And there was one scene where Anthony Edwards, playing Theophilus North, comes to my door to see my daughter, and I yell at him, and Danny and I got kind of carried away, and he wanted me to sort of yell at him the way I yelled at Stephen Furst and Flounder in Animal House. So I've always resent the fact that I went too easily down that road and ruined that performance, I think, by getting carried away with reiterating what I had already done before. And I'm not, as I said no to Hill Street Blues because I wanted to do a lot of different things. I wanted to change it up. Right. So it gets very limiting if you're always playing the guy who's mad at people.
Right. I mean, I'm so glad you had a real answer to that question, because honestly, the only reason I was asking was based on a really stupid pun. I was going to be really upset with myself if I let it pass by, but we can't ignore the fact. And did the irony ever occur to you that you played the Maestro in Seinfeld, and then you played the Master in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which of course Maestro just means the master.
Master. Right.
So I'm assuming there was some kind of a collaboration between Larry David and Joss Whedon on that.
Joss Whedon. They dated for a while, I'm told. So I'm sure
it's canon. It's canon. He said it. You heard him. You heard it on Beer with Buffy first, guys.
It's all about starting rumors, and we're starting one now. I'm sure Larry will be calling me. Gail Strickland, who was a friend of mine at the time, said that should be the title of your autobiography, From the Maestro to the Master, or From the Master to the Maestro.
Yes. Love it.
And I always think of myself as the master. When this what's his name? The guy, Leonard Bernstein, he plays Leonard Bernstein. Gladys Cooper, not Gladys Cooper. Gladys Cooper is a wonderful actress. Who's the actor? Cooper, somebody Cooper.
Alice?
No, Alice Cooper. Yeah, no, he's a singer. The guy who directed the movie The Maestro.
Oh, I didn't know there was a movie, The Maestro.
Sadly. Oh, you didn't?
I didn't.
You should put out more.
I should. You're preaching to the choir, bud.
Yeah. There was a couple of things that blew up across Twitter. There's a movie called The Maestro about Leonard Bernstein. Okay. And, if you remember in Seinfeld, I have a long speech with Elaine about how everybody called Lenny Bernstein. Everybody called Lenny Maestro. If it was good enough for Lenny, it should be good enough for me. Shouldn't it? And so it was this
but
thing. But
not in social situations. Come on.
All the time. I insist upon it all the time. We don't do it in social situations when we're not taking it seriously. But there was a thing that went around Twitter and some of those other social media things when the Maestro opened, when that movie opened, because it got a lot of hullabaloo when it opened. Bradley Cooper, not Gladys Cooper, Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, hey, that does sound familiar. I've heard that name before.
You've heard that name. Yeah. You now call him up and get him on your show. He'll do.
I'm on top of it. Hey, any help you can give us with that, we're
tell him the Maestro said he should do your show.
Done. I've got this on Memorex. So
oh yeah, it's being recorded. I saw that notation down there before. So what was the question?
I don't remember. So far removed. We're just bantering at this point. I can come up with another question. I have a whole list of them. What was it like working on Angel in the episode Darla and or The Wish a couple years after season 1 of Buffy was done? Were you surprised to have a chance to reprise the role of the Master?
I was surprised and I was pleased because I'd left Hollywood. I'd quit acting and moved to Wisconsin and bought a restaurant bar and really had thought I was retired. But the money was nice and it was a great character. And they asked me to come back and do that. And I love Julie Benz. I really liked working with her. She's a wonderful actress and a nice woman, a very nice woman, I think. My experience of her is anyway. David, what's his name?
Boreanaz. Yep.
Boreanaz. I'd met on the set. I wasn't in an episode with him, but he was on the set once because we overlapped on Buffy.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I'd met him, and he was when he first was on it, and he was a nice guy, a nice young man, and seemed like an earnest actor. But by the time he had his own show, he was kind of full of himself. He kind of thought he was all that, so he wasn't that fun to work with.
Well,
but it's hard. But it's hard to resist doing that. If they telling you're the sexiest man in Hollywood, and they're giving you all the money, and they're and they're blowing smoke up your ass all day long from the time you wake up until the time you're trying to go to sleep. It's hard to resist. It's hard to not believe all that.
That's what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they inflate your ego, you're going to have an inflated ego.
You're going to have it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're cynical about it, like I was, and say, you're full of shit, then they stop inflating your ego. Suddenly there's nobody blowing smoke up your ass.
Oh,
sorry. Can I say all that on here?
That's a double-edged sword. You can swear more.
Our show is plenty our show is plenty vulgar.
You're not meeting your quota. If you could swear a little more, that'd be great.
No, our tagline is
5 minutes. What?
One of our taglines is that our show is highly inappropriate.
Highly inappropriate. I like that.
We're highly inappropriate. Yes. So we already covered Fruit Punch Mouth.
On another beer. All right.
Sorry, I was just kind of talking to myself for a second there. That's what we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
I never got around to asking originally. We just kind of launched into it. How did you hear about, or how did you get involved with Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the first place? Did you was it just another audition for you at the time, or did you hear about it? Did somebody ask you to audition?
I hadn't heard anything about it. I had seen the movie of Buffy the Vampire Slayer that Josh made, that he wrote, that he didn't like very much. He didn't. In fact, one of the reasons he said he wanted to do the series is because he hadn't liked what they'd done with the Master, especially.
Oh yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah.
And but it was just an audition. I think I went back for 2 callbacks or 3 callbacks. The casting director told me that she was doing something that casting directors will often do when they can't bring in the right person. When the right person doesn't show up and the director or producer doesn't say, that's what I want. You begin to sort of bracket it. You bring in people that are on either side of what he's trying to describe to try to narrow it down.
Right.
And she brought me in, she told me, because she was sure that I wasn't what he wanted. But it would help her eliminate a certain type of actor.
Well, joke's on her now, isn't it?
What? Yeah. Where is she now? I don't know. Probably living in a big house in Beverly Hills. I don't know. With an indoor pool and an indoor gym and servant. So, but something about what I did and what I was appealed to Josh. And so I went into the next one and another callback and then the other callback. And then, and at the end, I don't know, did I tell this story already? We've been talking for 3 days now, and I can't remember all of it.
Exactly 3 days, 4 hours, and 20 minutes. And
is that how it is? Yeah. Yep. I watched stuff. When I got the part, I said to Josh, okay, what's the arc? Because we talked earlier about how actors like to know if there's an arc and where does this character go? What's his journey in the parlance of us old hippies?
To answer your question, you have not told this story yet, so continue.
Okay, good. So I said to Josh, so what happens to the Master as this season goes on? Because they didn't sign me even to a season contract. They just told me I was going to be in, I think, 11 or 12 of the 13 episodes that they were going to shoot. And he said, it's really great. He said, at the end, in the last episode, you kill Buffy. And I said, oh, wow, that's cool. Does that mean if it gets picked up, the second season will be called Master the Buffy Slayer? And he laughed and then left the room and didn't tell me that I kill her, but then she's resurrected and comes back and turns me into that glitter dust that those other vampires wear all over themselves.
Oh, yeah. Didn't they have to destroy your skeleton at some point? Was that actually your skeleton?
Yeah, it's a documentary, the whole thing.
I want to yes and my own joke there, but I can't even take myself seriously right now. Thank you for rolling with that.
Have another ginger beer.
I will. Well, I'm not done with this one yet, but
okay.
Since you told me so, this one's for you.
Thank you.
You okay there, Rex? You dying?
Yeah, just, asthma.
It's not a good show if I don't almost kill him at least once. So there it is. It's officially a good episode.
Almost died. All of us almost died shooting. The first 2 or 3 episodes, the Master's lair, the church buried underneath, was all. They really were really realistic, and they had real dirt on the floor.
Oh man!
But it's all so dry, and it's a contained thing. There's no moisture to settle it, and so we were all breathing this dirt all the time, and people started getting sick. So they realized it wasn't adding anything other than maybe a little Ridley Scott kind of misty filter to the lens, and they could do that with the lighting. So they cut it back. They got rid of all the dirt so we could breathe, and we didn't have to cough our elbow like Rex.
Honestly, real dirt.
A good grade school cough. Very good.
Real dirt's probably better than fake dirt, though. If there's silicone in it, that's how you get that black lung.
That's how you get really sick. Yeah. I did a play in New York. I did a production of The Tempest at Lincoln Center, and was on sand. Santa LaCosta did the set, and the whole set was all sand. It's a wonderful theater in the round. I've done a couple of plays there, and everybody was getting sick, and they realized it was because the silicone, because the sand was drying out under the lights. It was getting in the air. People were breathing it, and everybody was getting sick. Excuse me.
Speaking of.
And so then they started wetting the sand, and everybody started getting a different kind of sick because they were walking on cold, wet sand all the time.
Oh, jeez.
Because we were in bare feet most of the time.
This was all in a production of The Tempest?
Oh, The Tempest at Lincoln Center, yeah.
Okay.
At the new house, out upstairs.
That's funny you bring that up. I was going to ask, what kind of roles have you done on stage? I know you... I'm really fascinated with your range. You're either calm and scary, or you're very, very angry and scary. Like your vein is popping out of your head. Like the Twisted Sister video. I honestly wondered how you got through that without having a stroke. That was the most impressive part. Also the stunts.
In the Twisted Sister videos, you mean?
Yeah.
No, I didn't have a stroke. I was younger then. I'd probably have a stroke now. No, my nose would probably
or that.
Yeah.
You're
what?
No,
Well,
sorry.
now you're not talking at all.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
We'll talk at the same time all the time.
All the time. Dang, I missed it.
At the same time.
We tried to
to
sync that up. We gotta snap at the same time, and then we'll get it.
Okay. Rex, calm us down.
I've been trying for 5 years to calm that man down. It doesn't work. That's a big part of our shtick, honestly, is me trying to calm Josh down.
But no, your range. You're always very either calm and scary, or angry and loud and scary. But also, I don't know, something about the timbre of your voice and your cadence. You have this very kind of musical, rhythmic cadence to your voice, and I was wondering, how does that lend itself to your stage acting? Have you done any formal vocal training? I can't figure out if you have kind of an accent, because aren't you a Michigan native?
Missouri native.
Okay.
So I've got a bit of a Missouri accent that I worked hard to get rid of. And the college I went to, University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, was the training, and it was not a conservatory kind of training. Now it's a really great musical theater school. But then it was sort of living off the reputation of a fellow named Valentine Wint, which was very classical theater. I did a lot of Shakespeare, a lot of Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller. I did all, and I don't think I did any Chekhov. I did some Chekhov, but all classical theater. And when you come up doing Shakespeare, in those days at that place, they wanted you to speak what we call mid-Atlantic, with mid-Atlantic speech, which doesn't exist anywhere. It's somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic where you're all wet, but it's a combination of English and American. And it's not particularly productive, but it was so well ingrained in me that it took me a long time to, one, break it down, and also to realize that my Missouri accent was a much more marketable commodity, a much more natural. It's a much more natural sound to me, and it's a much more marketable sound than that mid-Atlantic speech. We never got the kind of training they get in England. You see all these American superhero movies are acted by English actors who do phenomenal American accents. They can do an Indiana accent.
Yeah, they do. I said, yeah, they do. Like even the guy that plays Rick Grimes on Walking Dead, he's British.
Yeah. Lots of British, Australians. They're so much better technically trained than most of the American actors I've run into, or I ran into when I was running into actors anyway. But what was the question? Let's see.
The theater, live stage theater.
Oh, my range. Yeah. So I did I think I thought a really fine Romeo. I did the Macduff in the Scottish play. I've done a lot, and the Tempest I've done twice. Once at Lincoln Center, and then once at the McCarter Theater in Princeton. And I've done a lot. I've done a lot of Shakespeare on stage too, and some new stuff, and some Sam Shepard. So I've done a lot of things. And then when I quit in 2000, right after I'd done Buffy, and I quit and I moved from Los Angeles to Wisconsin and bought a restaurant. My woman I was married to at the time, and my son's mother, she knew about restaurants, ran restaurants. I spent a lot of time in bars, so I thought I knew about restaurants. I bought a restaurant. She ran it. I worked the front of the house. I was the kissable lips of a restaurant called Libby, Montana, which is still there in Mequon, Wisconsin, just north of Milwaukee. Everybody should go. The fish fry is great.
If I'm ever out there, I'm all
I
over.
love a good fish fry.
And fish fries, they do fish fries in Wisconsin because I don't old German Catholic tradition, and there's some of them are good and some of them are just, you may as well stay home and have fish sticks. But but our fish fry was really good. But and I quit, and I didn't think I'd act anymore. I'd really gotten bored with the parts I was getting, even though I had just come off of doing the Master and come off of doing the Maestro and Seinfeld. It was still doing movies and television. Two things are different. One is that there's not a lot of layers to characters or to scripts, to the stories. There's not a lot of depth to it, not the richness that you get in a play. Plus, doing a play, you spend 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks in a room with a bunch of people figuring out how to do it and finding out about each other, finding out how you work. And the collaboration is much more. There's a process that I understand and really like in the collaboration.
It's a lot more personal, right?
It's a lot more personal. Yeah, you can bring more of yourself to it, and you can also find out more if you're doing a play by somebody like Chekhov or Edward Albee or even like Edgar Lee Masters, who wrote Spoon River Anthology, things like that, or Kaufman and Hart. I just watched the other night. I watched most of You Can't Take It With You. Great play that I did. Was my first play I ever got paid as a fully professional actor to do, and I'd forgotten how much it's Kaufman and Hart are great writers. They wrote some movies, but mostly they wrote plays. Anyway, you get to spend all this time with these people, getting to know them getting to know you, sharing, figuring out how to tell a story the best possible way. So I quit in 2000 and bought this restaurant and thought I was not going to do it anymore. And then this fellow came up to me at my restaurant at lunchtime and said, "I'd like you to do this play at my theater. It's called First Stage Children's Theater." The fellow's name was Rob Goodman. Mm-hmm. And I said, "I don't want to do children's theater, ghosts and goblins and all that stuff." And he said, "No, this is different. This is different. We do it differently. Just read this play." It was a play called Einstein, Hero of the Mind. And it was my character, who was a kind of a magical character that exploded out of a book. And I got to sing and I got to dance. And myself and a 14-year-old girl who was acting the part of a girl in high school, I guess, who had to write a paper about Einstein. and 5 actors manipulating and speaking for, I think, 47 puppets or something like that. It was myself, this 14-year-old girl, and 47 puppets told the story of Einstein from the time he was a 16-inch marionette puppet and couldn't talk because he was so nervous and he stammered and people thought he was dumb, to when he's sitting in a rowboat at the last image of the play after the bomb on Hiroshima, which he was not part of the manufacture of, but his science was the reason they were able to do it. And he had been instrumental in convincing Roosevelt to explore this, because he knew the Germans were going to be trying to create a nuclear weapon. So he sat in a rowboat every day for 2 years after the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, trying to figure out what his culpability was in this death of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of innocent people. And so it was this wonderful play that had this whole historical thing, and it didn't spare anything. It took us through the Holocaust, when he fled Germany, and trains filled with dead bodies, and so it wasn't ghosts and goblins. And I got back into the theater, and I think I did 6 or 8 plays for them in the time that I lived there, and everything from Einstein, Hero of the Mind, to a play called Midnight Cry about an escaped slave and the Underground Railroad escaping into Wisconsin and then into Canada. A lot of plays, The Giver, the Lois Lowry book, for children. And, for children as audience and children and their parents would come. We did The Christmas Story. And now I'm really off and running. But you asked about the theater. I so much prefer the theater because it's live. As a friend of mine used to say, the difference between acting in movies and acting in a theater is in the theater you can be shot. And it's really true. I mean, you're in danger, in a kind of a danger that you don't get every day. Because if you piss them off, and they have shot actors, they've shot people in the theater with Lincoln, but they've also, of course, had riots. They used to have riots in New York about the interpretation of Hamlet. They would have people would. Wow. That's how passionate people were about the theater. But when you engage people, and you can smell them, and they can smell you, and you're right there, and they can feel that you're spit on them, you're liable to get them more passionate than they get about Iron Man. Although my son's pretty passionate about Iron Man.
Rex is pretty passionate about Iron Man himself.
Yeah, I can understand. He's a pretty funny guy.
Funny looking. Oh, sorry. He got a dig on me earlier. I had to pay it back. Yeah. So did you ever get back into film acting? Sorry, I don't recall off the top of my head what your most recent stuff is.
It's hard. There's not very much recently. I did when I was in Wisconsin. There, I worked for the Wisconsin Milwaukee Film, which is the group of people that put on the Milwaukee Film Festival, and I created a project there called Collaborative Cinema, where we would teach high school students how to write movies, and then we get them, 50 of them to write a screenplay for a short film, and we would produce the best one. And it was a great program. And because of that, I brought in a lot of local filmmakers who were doing mostly documentaries and ads, commercials, industrial films and stuff, not working on a lot of narrative film. And I encouraged them to work on narrative film, because they would teach and direct these short films and with high school students. And there was a fellow named Tate Bunker that I really liked, that I've now done I've done 2, maybe 3 films with him out of Wisconsin. And a couple of other people I did short. So I did get back into doing film acting, but not much. I've decided in 2000, if somebody asked me, and they asked me nicely, and they seemed to be like they might be interesting to work with, then I would do it. But it's just too hard. It's too hard. The work is too difficult to waste it on I mean, I'd rather walk my dog. So
that's wholesome.
I get that.
But if you got a job, I'm happy to look at it, and we could. I'd love that. What?
That brings another very important question. What kind of dog?
Chocolate lab. 3 years and
I love labs.
4 months chocolate lab. The English style with a big blocky head and deep chest, and his name's Mike. And
nice.
He's going to be home. He goes to camp on Friday mornings and comes home at around 1:30. So he'll be home shortly.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wonderful. Who's walking him now if he's not there?
He's at camp. He's at camp with Ben.
Okay.
He's got a bunch of buddies. So he goes, Basil is there at camp with him, who's a big old white, like a golden retriever, but one of the white ones. And Charlie, who is a young golden retriever, is one of his pals in the neighborhood. Ben comes over from Clackamas and picks up. He takes about 6 or 7 dogs, and he'll take them down to the river for a swim and play with them for 4 hours. He just takes care of Mike. Loves them. Hangs out with these dogs.
Wonderful.
He comes home and plays with me for about 20 minutes, and then he collapses and sleeps.
Heck, it sounds like your dog has a better social life than I do.
Yeah,
absolutely does.
My dog is my social life.
Yeah, I've been cat sitting recently, and that's fun, getting to know some other cats. So that's my social life.
You guys sound really exciting.
We are. Thank you. Are you working on anything right now at the moment? Any plays or whatever?
No plays. There's just been this bug going around for the last 3 years. I can't remember what they call it.
Haven't heard of it.
Something with a C. COVID.
I had it. I had it just a handful of weeks ago.
Oh, really?
And it leveled me for a solid week.
You got the new variant. Did you get rid of it? Yeah.
Yeah, because
I'm good now, but it definitely made my asthma worse.
Yeah, he was asymptomatic.
If you've got the pre-existing condition like asthma, that it's going to be bad for you.
Yeah, he was asymptomatic when he got it the first time. He was the first person I knew to get COVID back in 2000, and but this time it floored him.
I was an essential worker when the initial pandemic hit. I worked in senior housing, so. So I was essentially frontline.
You were frontline.
It was intense. It was intense and terrifying.
I applaud all the people who work frontline business. And my ex-wife, who ran the restaurant, managed to keep it running and open through 3 years of COVID. I mean, people needed to get out when they finally could, and she managed to keep the restaurant open. And anybody who worked those jobs, we all need to be applauded. I think it'll be a decade before we really understand how the culture was affected by those 3 years of
definitely agree.
Yeah, that was impressive for any business that managed to stay open through the lockdowns. I was working at a restaurant that had just opened, and I thought for sure they were going to go under, but they're still clipping along, so I guess they had a good enough business model, even though I had other thoughts at the time, but whatever. Good for them. I wanted to ask, what's your favorite film project or stage? Well, let's say film and stage. What's your favorite that you've ever worked on?
That's a real hard question. It's like, who's your favorite child?
That's fair.
I mean, Animal House was an incredible amount of fun to work on, and it's 45 years old, and people still talk about it and still want to find out things about it. And in those 45 years, because it's been a kind of an iconic film. It's in the AFI 100 and all those lists it's on. I've become better and different kind of friends with many of the actors in it. You become friends with the people that you're working on the movie with. You become there's an intimacy, a kind of an emotional intimacy, and then when the film's over, you go your separate ways and you go to find the next family to work with. But those people have been my family for 45 years for different different events. And so that was a lot of fun to work on. But the theater has given me more, as I said earlier, deeper, richer rewards emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And a play called, a Eugene O'Neill play called Long Day's Journey into Night was probably one of the more profound experiences in the theater that I've done, although I did a Henry IV part 1 and 2 when Peter Sellers opened he called it ANT, the American National Theater at the Eisenhower Theater in Washington, D.C., with a great cast, great bunch of people. And that was really like a war experience. We rehearsed for 7 weeks, and most of that time without a Falstaff, because the director, Tim Mayer, couldn't find anybody to play Falstaff.
Oh, that's terrifying.
They hired somebody, and he quit after a week because it was too intense and too crazy.
Oh, yeah. I was in a production of Macbeth where we had to replace Lady Macbeth, I think, with like 3 or 4 days notice. And so one of the producers took over. She'd played the role before and pulled it out of her ass solidly. I was impressed.
It's amazing what people can do. You beg for more and more rehearsal, but sometimes when you're just doing it on fear, it's great. The guy who finally ended up playing Falstaff, Tim Mayer, the director, one of the smartest people I've ever worked with, talked the guy who was playing Henry IV, Prince Hal's father, Jack McMartin. He convinced him that when Shakespeare did the play, they did it with 12 actors and everybody doubled. And the classic double during that time was Henry IV also played Falstaff. So Hal's real father, Henry IV, was also the same actor that was playing Falstaff, his surrogate father, his bad, drunken father. And it made a lot of sense on paper. It was completely made up, but he managed to convince McMartin to do it. Is that his name, McMartin? Martin McMartin, I can't remember. And he was great. He was great. His Henry IV had been brilliant, because Henry IV is very hard to make him step off the stage and into people's lives, because he's a very tight, erudite. It's a great show about politics, but it's not real theatrical. The fun part of Henry IV, part 1, is Hal and Falstaff at the bar, drunk, robbing people. And but he could do that, and he had to do. There was one moment in the whole course of the 2 plays we did back to back. I strung them, sort of wrote them together, where Falstaff and Henry IV are on stage at the same time, and Jack had a fat suit to play Falstaff, and he just put the fat suit on somebody else who ran across the stage in the middle of a battle, and that was a great time in the theater. Just Shakespeare. So, and I produced a movie called Chilly Scenes of Winter that 4 people have seen, but one critic called it put it on its 10 best list of the 70s. John Hurd and Mary Beth Hurt, Gloria Graham, myself, I'm in it, Peter Riegert's in it. Really good cast. Joan Micklin Silver directed it from a book by Ann Beattie. And that was that took 2 years out of my life to produce it, set it up, worked. My partners were Griffin Dunn and Amy Robinson, who were just my best friends at the time. And we just thought, hey, let's make a movie. Your dad has a barn. My mom can make the costumes. Let's make a movie.
There you go.
And we naively thought that, and we ended up doing it. And it's a good film. It's flawed, but it's a good film. And that was a great experience too. Criterion Network just picked it up and put it on their list, which is really cool. Nice.
Yeah, it's really easy to get attached to those projects that you conceive from the get-go, and you really have to be the one who makes it happen, Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
not just going up and hitting your marks and saying your lines and not bumping into the furniture, which I think is something Robert Duvall said. That's what all acting is say your line, hit your marks, say your lines, and don't bump into the furniture.
Don't bump into the furniture. That's important.
Oh, yeah.
One time in a production of Babes in Arms, I specifically had to bump into the furniture because it wasn't on its spike mark. So,
it was in the wrong place.
There's an exception to every rule. Just saying, Mark.
That's true. I think that's the third time you've said that.
Is it? I lost track. So I'm glad somebody's keeping track. That's why we pay you the big bucks.
Oh yeah, I think they're knocking at the door with the trunk full of money right now.
They should be. I'm glad that they run. No, I wasn't sure I was going to bring up this movie, but since you mentioned Animal House at the beginning of that, the question about your favorite thing to work on, I really enjoyed the movie Futile and Stupid Gesture, and half of a good chunk of that, a third of that movie is about the production of Animal House and the creation of National Lampoon's and SNL. And I thought it was great that they put both you and Harry Groener in that movie because you were around and involved with those projects, or you were anyway. I'm not sure if Harry was.
I don't think Harry was part of it.
Okay, yeah, but obviously you were in Animal House, so I was wondering, doing a Futile and Stupid Gesture, I don't know, 30 years down the line or 40 or how many it was.
Yeah, a little more than 40 years.
Yeah. Did you watch that movie and were you able to say to yourself, hey, I was there for that. And that's exactly how it went down, or hey, that's not how that went down. Like, did it give you any kind of a nostalgic moment where it was kind of like looking into a redundant mirror kind of a situation?
Yes.
Great. Glad we covered that. Glad I asked.
It was such a long question. I thought I'd just give you a short answer.
Good.
No, it was. The book I thought was really good. I thought they didn't quite accomplish what they should have been wanting to accomplish with the movie. And I think they might agree that they didn't accomplish it. But it was interesting. I was familiar with the movie. It wasn't like the first time I'd revisited the movie because there had been, I think at the 40th anniversary of the movie, there were a lot of reunions where we all got together, and there'd been other things where people had done small reunions. Also, I auctioned myself off occasionally to show them to raise money for Alzheimer's Association and a not-for-profit that I worked with in Montana. I lived in Montana called Montana Natural History Center. I'll auction myself off to come to your house, show the movie, tell stories, answer questions. We'll supply some appetizers, hors d'oeuvres, some food. And people have toga parties, and people have a great time. So I've seen the movie, and I've told stories about it a lot. So it wasn't new. They got most of it right. There were some things I guess I didn't quite know, but I'd read the book, the biography of Doug Kenny, and I really liked and loved possibly, and admired Doug Kenny, the fellow who wrote it, who took the Harvard Lampoon with Henry Bean, and I think Henry Bean, and the two guys that movie is about, and turned it into the National Lampoon, and then turned it into Animal House. And so I knew Doug pretty well because he was around when they shot the movie. He plays the character Stork, and he and I spent a lot of time together because he used to tell me that the character Neidermeyer was based on his older brother, who was kind of the golden boy in the family, and Doug was the goofball. There was a kind of thing there, but So, and the funny thing about the movie was that I was on the call sheet as an actor playing some publisher that they come to try to get the National Lampoon published when they're first trying to get it published. But I was also on the call sheet. There was a character named Mark Metcalf, the actor who played Douglas C. Neidermeyer in the movie. So there was a kind of that mirror thing that you talk about. Yeah. Happened when I'd look at the call sheet, because I'd go down the call sheet and there would be my name, Mark Metcalf, playing da-da-da-da, and then there would be some other actor whose name I can't remember playing Mark Metcalf, who is there for, and at the same time playing Douglas C. Neidermeyer. So very confusing, and obviously I'm still confused.
Yeah. Well, I loved that part of the movie where they had all those different actors in there playing older actors. Like I think even Seth Green was in there playing somebody, and somebody was playing Bill Murray. I can't remember any of these modern actors' names, but it was great to see them portraying these classical, these actors that I grew up with watching in a bunch of different movies and seeing how well they get their mannerisms. That was really fun for me. But yeah, were you happy with how that film turned out? I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, well, that's good. And having spent this last hour with you, I can see that you might, but it's okay. No, I wasn't happy with it. I as I said, I really loved Doug Kenny and thought he was had a great, wonderful comic mind, or just a wonderful mind. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe that the film honored and respected him as well as it should have. I mean, I didn't need to get sappy and maudlin about him, but a pretty interesting guy. More complicated, more interesting than he was in I can't remember the actor who played him in that movie. And I could say anything I want because I'm never going to work again anyway. So he probably runs Hollywood now.
Well,
I don't know. So anyway, but I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked it.
Thank you.
You above all.
Special dispensation.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. All right. Thank you. Well, I'm pretty much out of questions, and I think we're stretching your time pretty thin. Rex, did you have anything to follow up with here?
Mike's going to be home.
Yeah, not really. I think we covered everything I could think to cover. Unless we wanted to bring up the Charisma Carpenter thing, Josh.
There were those extra questions from the email. Let me just run them past you real quick. So, did you have any comments or any insights about Charisma Carpenter's open letter on Twitter about Joss Whedon on February 10th, 2021, or even just some kind words to support Charisma Carpenter and women and actors in general with their struggles these days?
I'm not aware of what Charisma Carpenter said in her open letter. I am aware to one degree or another of the accusations or the things that have been said about Joss Whedon's behavior. I never saw any of it, never felt any of it. He has an ego. You have to have an ego to succeed in that business, which is one of the reasons I quit, because I have no ego. But yeah, as far as what she petitioned about, as far as the Me Too movement, as far as everything that's happening and has happened and is continuing, hopefully, to happen in the film business and in other businesses, I think it's great, and it's about fucking time. The business
yeah. Love it.
The business is emotion has been the business of it has been corrupt for a long, long time in many ways. In the ways,
Amen.
I mean, the gender inequality and gender whatever they want to call it, the domination of men,
the patriarchy,
the patriarchy,
or something,
is I mean, we've made a mess of it, and it's about time we. It's only 100 years ago that women were even given a chance to vote.
Right.
When they wrote this law, this Constitution that everybody praises, women weren't even counted as human beings. African Americans were counted. It took three African Americans to make one human being. As far as voting, as far as the way that democracy works. So we have a lot of growing to do. The backlash the maddening backlash about stapling women to their uteruses and not letting them have autonomy over their own bodies. In some states, that's just backlash of what the growth that happened from Roe v. Wade on and everywhere else is sad. And if everybody doesn't get out and vote in November, it's going to be. We haven't even begun to know what it's like, what it can be like, and
things can always get worse.
Things can always get worse. Yeah. Things are bad, and things are better here than they are in Gaza. I'd rather be living here than in Gaza, or the Ukraine, and both of which are states that are being bullied and butchered. But we can make it better. That's kind of the job of being an American, is to figure out how to make it better. It's a work in progress. You're a work in progress. You're a work in progress. I'm a work in progress.
It never stops.
That.
What?
I said I can't deny that, and Rex talked over me.
Yeah, it in the work in progress aspect never stops. Like,
right? No, it never stops.
And nor should you ever stop doing it. Like that's what living should be, and I think a lot of people kind of forget that part.
Yeah, well, it's safer and nicer to think that we're done. I'm who I am, and that's who I'm going to be tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and you begin closing yourself off then, and rather than keeping yourself open and inclusive rather than exclusive. Right. And it's hard. It takes a certain amount of courage to sort of wake up each day and open your eyes and try to look for what's new and good and kind. And that made me burp. Excuse me.
Well, on that note,
it's a good note to come out.
Yeah, I think that was a wonderful.
I got my whole stir fry right back up in my throat.
No,
people talk about having my heart's in my throat because it's so sad, but it's my stir fry.
It was a wonderful message, regardless. And I'm, you know what? Now I want stir fry. So you really can't ask for more.
Thanks a lot. This has been fun. It's been a fun hour and 4 days, whatever it's been.
It's been very fun for me as well. I won't speak for Rex. I'll let him speak for himself.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, Mark. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And this has been Beer with Buffy. I'm Rex.
I'm Josh.
I'm Mark.
And this was Mark Metcalf.
And thank you all very much. Bye.
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 Take care.
Do I leave? I'm going to leave now, right?
Yeah.
Mark can stop recording and we can chat just for a little longer.
Well, I've got to get ready. Mike comes home and I have to do my hair.
All right, I'll let you go then.
I'm hungry.
Okay. Oh yeah, and you're hungry. You need to go do some stuff.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Have a good time. Send me you edit this and then you put it on somewhere, right?
Yep, I'll put it on YouTube, and it'll also be available in audio form only on all your favorite podcast platforms.
Yeah, and we'll send you a link.
Send me a link. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes,
thanks.
We'll do. Thanks again so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm a watcher. I haven't the skill.
Oh, come on.
By appealing to your common sense. Werewolves, incubi, succubi, everything you've ever dreaded was under your bed, but told yourself couldn't be by the light of day.
One gal in all the world.
Common sense.
One gal in all the world.
It was a bit British, wasn't it?
Wait, what have we done? Why are we watching this?